Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice.
Hey everybody, Chad Madden here with the Grow Your Practice podcast. And today we have a very special guest, a friend of mine for quite a few years now within the industry, Dr. Aaron LeBauer. Aaron LeBauer is the host of the Cash PT Lunch Hour podcast, also author. You've likely seen this just about everywhere, the author of the Cash PT Blueprint. And if you stay on here to the end, we're going to tell you about how you can get a copy. He has helped a ton of physical therapists, in particular within the cash pay PT space, move forward, overcome their doubts and fears, and be able to grow a very successful practice. So welcome to the podcast here, Aaron. Thanks for being here, man.
Hey, Chad. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor to be here, and I'm stoked because we just haven't spoken in a few years, and so I'm looking forward to this.
Great. And also, just to let everybody know, you also have your own private practice that is fully cash pay with your wife, Andra, correct?
Mm-hmm.
In North Carolina?
Yep.
So can you talk about a little bit about your roots? I know you've shared your story with me probably 6 or 7 years ago now about how you got started as a cash pay PT, how you made that leap, and how you overcame your own barriers just to get started.
Yeah, I think, thanks for asking. Yeah, I think especially it's important because most people may not know or whatnot, but I think I started as a massage therapist in 1999, and I had my own business, and people were saying, "Hey, Aaron, you're the first person to touch me where I hurt. Until I came to see you, like I've been struggling with this knee or back pain, and I've been to see chiropractors, massage therapists, orthopedic surgeon, had the surgery, other massage therapists, etc. And you're the first person to touch me where I hurt." And I was like, "Really? I'm the first?" And we're talking like, quad or traps or infraspinatus. And like, these aren't like really difficult places to touch. So I started, it was like, okay, great. And then patients said, okay, when am I going to finally get better? Well, as a massage therapist, I wasn't trained to give them a prognosis. I was trained to do really good manual therapy and relax them. And so my wife encouraged me to go to PT school, and I went to PT school at Elon University. And on my first clinical rotation, I saw 43 patients one day as a student. I was there probably from 7 a.m. to 9:30, something like that. And I'm sitting there at the end of the day with a stack of, notes. Like these were all like manila folder paper notes. I was like, there's no way in hell I'm doing this. And there's no way anyone's going to pay me to treat patients the way that I already know they need to be treated. So I have to start a cash practice, right? At the time, it wasn't a cash practice. Like I just have to not use insurance. And my CI turned to me when I told him what I was going to do. He said, no one's going to pay more than their copay for PT. And I was like, okay, well, people were already paying me $85 an hour at the time for massage therapy. I was like, if I'm going to be Dr. LeBauer, I'm sure they'll at least pay me $95. And, there weren't very many people that believed that would be true. When I graduated a few years later, I had already planned to start my practice. So my final clinical rotation was out in California, and the owner, Alan Ling there at PT Innovations, had encouraged me to build a business plan. And it wasn't like a traditional business plan, but it was more of like a presentation. And I finished school. I launched my business, charged $10 more an hour. People came to see me, but any PT I spoke to said that's unethical. You can't so much as breathe on a Medicare patient. You can't charge cash for PT. It's not going to work. But I knew in my heart that like the other option wasn't going to be for Aaron. And so, what I did is I just kind of put my head down and I started my practice within 2 months of PT school. The only thing that limited me was getting my PT license. And I just kind of focused on building it over the next few years, and people started asking me how I did it. And then that's how I got into the coaching business, was because people asked me for help. And, that's the short story.
Awesome. So I think this is extremely relevant for private practice PTs today, or anybody that's offering cash services, which even if we're in network now, we're essentially forced to figure that out.
Yeah.
When you first opened up and you had the patients coming through, I'm assuming they weren't physician referrals predominantly.
Yeah. We get almost no physician referrals. When physicians refer us, it's almost never because we're the best person. It's because the referral desk has decided that we're the closest to where the person lives.
Yeah.
And then those people rarely become our patients. So it's kind of like we get these faxes and we're like, oh, we'll get to those later.
Yeah. So in the beginning, when somebody would come in, what were the biggest challenges you had to overcome and ultimately win on your bet? Because you placed a big bet. And by the way, I just want to say I admire you for sticking yourself out there, the character and the grit to see it through and persevere and know who you were and ultimately be authentic to yourself. So well done there. What challenges did you have and how'd you overcome that?
Yeah, Phil, thanks for the big compliment. I appreciate that because not many other PTs who've been in it before me have actually been supportive. So thanks, Chad.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge is the same one that we still have, but I'm going to go down the street and use my insurance. My insurance is going to cover this. Why would I come see you? And so how do we overcome that? We do it in a couple different ways. One, we provide a service that they're not going to get anywhere else. We also have a program that, you can't get anywhere else either. It's not just in how we operate. It's not the treatment techniques and it's not the one-on-one time. We've created we start everyone with a total body diagnostic, which is basically a sales consultation, but that's what we call as total body diagnostic. And then we enroll people into specific programs. And so it's not just that part either. It's slowing down the conversation. When someone calls and asks, do you take my insurance? The answer isn't no. The answer is, may I ask who's speaking? And we want to get to know people and find out why they are seeking physical therapy. Why is this knee problem important to fix? Because we all know, you can go to Target, Walmart, REI, CVS, and find a solution for pain. You can go to Amazon, the internet, you can go to the surgeon. We want to find out their why. And then if we slow down enough and we figure out what's their why and why is this important to them, then we can create a customized program for them and give people an opportunity to kind of really choose us because we know where they hurt and that we can get them back to the activities and the meaning in their life that they've been missing out on. That's that's the high level version of it. I think the kind of the tactical weeds version is you never say we don't take insurance. I never would answer that question with a no. We're always going to answer that question with another question. Well, Mrs. Jones, before we talk about insurance and payment, is it okay if we ask you a few more questions to make sure we're a good fit for you? And in doing those two things, we're actually able to treat people like humans rather than numbers. And this is I'm not making a generalization around all PT practices, but if you go start reading the reviews on any of the, physician-owned practice PT mills. I waited in the waiting room. There's 2 stars. I waited for 2 hours to see my physical therapist or surgeon. It's people don't wait. They don't get that experience. But then it's really hard because not everyone's had that bad experience to say, hey, ours experience is better. So what we have to do is we have to look at each person individually and make a unique plan for them. But it's all based on sales and asking the right question.
Agree. Your questions are super powerful for everybody listening right now. That is, one of the biggest takeaways is when we flipped over all of our scripting, or whether we're in the exam room or at the front desk, to asking questions first before we start answering. That's great. Are you okay if I take a step back before we get into sales and marketing?
Yeah.
So, and I hadn't realized that before, probably everything that you were up against and having the enthusiasm, vision, and the stick-to-itiveness to go into cash PT at that time. Was there something growing up where you had to be gritty, where you had to overcome? What prepped you in life before that point to see it through? Was it encouragement from your wife? Was it how did you know how to do that? Because it's very easy to follow the rest of the crowd and just, go into a mill.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things. One, I grew up surrounded by physicians who had been in it for a long time. So my dad, I think, had me when I'm 48. He's 80. He just turned 87. So he's 35, 36 years older than me. So they're old school physicians. My dad, his two brothers, my grandfather's brother. They were the kind of physician where you go in because, something's wrong, and they examine you for, 20, 30 minutes. And then you go and sit in their office across from the desk from them and talk to them. And they basically spend an hour, like they had a real conversation with real people. And so there was this kind of like mindset of, this is how you treat patients. This is how patients get treated. Like they get treated like real humans, not like a diagnosis or a number. They have time to ask their own questions, and they feel like it's like, like we have an actual relationship. So there was that piece. So I knew that, when I saw the way this clinic, a couple clinics ran that I was in, I was like, I've already been helping people as a massage therapist who've told me they've been to PT and been to the surgeon, and they've never been helped other than until they came to see me. I knew like I couldn't get into PT and just do what everyone else was doing and see multiple people an hour. I had to have a model where I could see people as long as I want, when I want, without restriction from insurance. And because I knew that treating patients in this way that I grew up with and grew up around was important. Like I was like, why would I do it any different way? So there was that. So that was this, like my expectation, and my expectations weren't met when I got into, I was like, wow, like I went from massage therapy where we're struggling to be legitimized, and massage therapists want to accept insurance to legitimize profession, and, into a profession of physical therapy where I was like, wow, there's a lot of things that like massage therapy is doing better than PT. And why would I do this when I can, people are willing to pay a massage therapist $85 an hour? Why would I go work for someone for 40 or, like struggle to get $60? At the time I graduated, I think it was United Healthcare had said they're going to pay $38 no matter what you do in North Carolina. And I was like, no matter how long you spend, no matter what you do, it was like $38. I was like, there's no way. Like, that's just not me. So there was that was the mindset. And then I started racing bicycles when I was in maybe 10th grade. I think I started riding. My younger brother, David, his middle school tutor was a bicycle racer. And I was like, so I started riding with my brother, Dave. I worked at the bike shop. And then in college, I really got into it. And I, was never good at, I got cut from the basketball team. I didn't really get cut. I just got put on like fourth string, like I wasn't good at ball sports, or I wasn't like great. I think I started soccer like the last half of my senior year. I started a lot of our soccer games, but I there are 11 people on the field. I wasn't like, one of the best guys, and I didn't excel. But when I was riding bikes and racing bikes, like I started winning and started doing really well, and I was stronger than most people. And I said to myself, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see how far I can take this. And I ended up, I got to, in bicycle racing, there's category 5, which is entry level 1, and then there's pro, and then there's like Lance Armstrong pro. Like I was never the Tour de France, but I would go out and ride in the rain, 45 degrees every day, and living in San Francisco to train to race bikes. And I made it to, top amateur level. I almost turned pro, but it was politics and I wasn't like really that great. I was just a little too old. But I think that's where I learned that the grit and determination, if you set a goal and you just go after it every day, like you're just going to outlast other people. And bicycle racing is about outlasting the competition. And there's some skill and maneuverability, but you just have to be able to, train harder and smarter, not just all the time, and outlast everybody. And I think the combination of those two things gave me the vision of how I thought my profession, my career should be, and how to go after and get it.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing those two things.
Yeah.
I think it gives a good insight for where we're about to go. So regardless of what business practice we're operating with in the healthcare industry right now, we're all in the new patient business. And there are multiple ways to get them from our past patient list, which we'll talk about here. I'd like to go into that first, and then we can also go to the other extreme, which is cold traffic marketing. So when you're talking about a past patient, two most common ways are snail mail, which is what I still think it's there. We certainly do it, and I know many owners do it as well. And then there's also email. Can you talk about how you think about the patient list, the past patient list, the past client list, and then also successful tactics or principles that owners can use in order to get the most out of their patient list?
Yes. I think there's a power in the inefficiency. So all of our patients get a handwritten welcome note, and everyone who refers someone gets a handwritten thank you note. And we will do if we officially graduate people, we don't always officially graduate people. If we do, they get a handwritten note at that time as well. So that's most of the snail mail we do. I think snail mail is great. There's great. I mean, all the Dan Kennedy stuff around that is amazing. What we do a lot of is email follow-ups, because it doesn't take a person to write it, and I can send them efficiently. And I really started this when it was really just me. I was like, I need a way to be able to interact with people when I'm treating patients. And I think a couple of the important touch points are when they, let's say if they're just going to become a patient, we have an application funnel that we've built and teach our clients how to get people to apply to work with us. So there's 3 different touch points and thank you points. It's one, you've filled out the application. So it's thank you very much for filling out the, applying to, receive a total body diagnostic at our clinic. Here's what you told us. Here's what you said you want. We'll be getting back to you within the next 12 to 48 hours. Thank you very much. It's just, we use, one of the cool things about emails and having forms is that I can take their answers and insert it directly into the email using some specific code. So we do it at that point. We do it when they book. So when they call in the clinic to book, or when we call back and they book, our person at the front desk fills out a form with some of the answers that I want to get information on, like how they hear about us, what do they want, a little more clarity on what they want, what they're looking for, who they're scheduled with, et cetera. And then they get another thank you email. And then when they become a patient, our therapist fills out a quick form with the patient's goals and the program they're in. And then they get another confirmation email. And then beyond that, they get a series of other emails, depending on which stage they're in, welcoming them to the clinic and giving them information and pre-framing how this will work, as well as handling some common objections that people have. Like one big objection people have, not to becoming a patient, but after the eval is, I hurt, or that wasn't a miracle cure kind of thing. People expect like a one visit wonder, or they're more sore. And that's built into a framework that I've created with like 3 phases of therapy that I deliver in email. Like phase 1 is we got to reduce the pain and symptoms. Phase 2, figure out exactly where the problem is. And phase 3 is make you better, faster, stronger, and ensure this doesn't ever happen again. And we pre-frame. I use email to pre-frame how this is going to work, pre-frame what's next, but also request testimonials, reviews, keep in touch with people, and patients love it. A few people, very small amount of people hate it, but they're not the right patients for us. And they prove that with their replies and whatnot. But I think that most people's fear is that, I'm going to overwhelm people. But I would rather have more confirmation that I've purchased something or become a client of someone than absolutely nothing at all.
That's great. So you're doing essentially a custom individualized email for everybody that becomes a patient or is about to become a patient in your practice. On the tail end, you talked about essentially like an NPS score, asking for reviews, something like that. Yep. Do you get into teaching or talking about utilizing the industry term is email blast, but a one-to-many type, delivering value, delivering promotions, anything like that? How do you think about that, Aaron?
Yes, we do. And so the emails, just to clarify, the emails that I just spoke about, once I wrote them the first time, they go out automatically to every new patient without me having to write it. So I just want to make sure, and Chad, I think you understand that because you use this kind of email, but for people listening, it's like, once I write it, when it's each of these forms or each of these requests by patients to download our free book or request an appointment, they trigger a series of emails, and people get moved along that path and they get triggered to move along the path based on all the different triggers. Then we do broadcast or blast type of emails. I don't do them as much as maybe I should or could, but we will do them to promote something. I've set up a lot of this as more automated. So doing something like that to me is it's not automated. So what I'll do is I'll create a blog post, and then my team will produce the video and the blog post, and then that will go out. Once that's posted, it'll trigger an automated email blast. And in that email template, it's got a call to action at the bottom for any special we're running or to refer a friend, et cetera. So, but I do teach people to do that, and I do that quite a bit in both of my businesses. But it's not the only thing I do, because that still takes Aaron's time on a repetitive basis versus setting up the automated sequences, which take my time like once or maybe once a year to revise something. And it just works in the background so that I can go on vacation, ride my bike, treat patients, et cetera.
Nice.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Breakthrough, the leading platform for practice growth. Breakthrough has helped over 1,500 healthcare practice owners leave a bigger impact in their communities and grow a larger business. As the founder of Breakthrough, I've developed a library of educational resources on practice growth. These are based on my learnings from my own experience as a private practice owner, plus the experience working with thousands of other owners in the Breakthrough community. If you have a growth mindset and you're hungry for free resources to help you grow, check out Breakthrough's Resource Hub. Go to getbreakthrough.com/resources, where you'll find on-demand trainings, tools, templates, planning guides, and a host of other free resources. Again, you can find these at getbreakthrough.com/resources. If you're interested in getting direct support with your practice growth, you can request a free growth consultation at getbreakthrough.com/podcast offer.
Talked quite a bit about email there, and I appreciate how you talked about creating the templates almost like a Mad Lib style.
Mm-hmm.
You're building the template one time, and then essentially the patient or whoever's scheduling for you, patient representative, et cetera,
yep,
by filling in a form, they're essentially creating the individualized email within the template that's going out automatically,
yep,
to every patient as they're coming through. Mm-hmm. And you also touched on email blasts or broadcast email there as well. I want to talk about what's the first appointment called, the diagnostic?
It's a total body diagnostic.
Okay. So when you're doing that,
Chad, real quick, before we do that, can I give like a real quick, something easy for everyone listening to do?
Yep. Great.
Okay. So one email blast that I've automated this, but one thing that you can do is if you have a list, send it out, and it's just going to be subject line is first name. And then the body of the email is going to be like, hey, first name. What progress have you made since our last visit, Dr. LeBauer? And you can send that out to all your past patients, no matter when they've come to see you. And people will either say, oh, I'm doing amazing, and you can ask for a review. They will say, I've been thinking about calling you to get back in, or they'll say, I'm doing great, or I'm struggling. And you can answer those questions and have team members answer them, whatnot. But that's one of the quick wins that we give our Platinum Mastermind members when they come on board is send this email right now. And it's really helpful. So hopefully if anyone's listening, it's, you actually go do it, but it's subject line, first name, or the subject line can be checking in, and it's, hey, first name, what progress have you made since our last visit? Doctor, your name. Simple, super simple.
That's great. And I'll back you up on that. I just told this story earlier today, but we have a similar thing called a single question email.
Mm-hmm.
And it's within the last 30 days. What pain have you experienced?
Mm-hmm.
We sent that out on Saturday. When I walked in Monday morning, the front desk said, you need to turn it off. I didn't know what they were talking about as it. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, we had over 200 email responses, and we don't know how to handle this. So, the point
That's a good one.
But I think you nailed the format there. any healthcare practitioner that owns a practice, that is amazing. Just asking your patient list questions. And I loved your question there as well. We haven't sent that one out, Aaron, but I'll make sure that we do so.
Yeah. Awesome.
Your oh my gosh, total body diagnostics.
Diagnostic. Yep.
Okay, cool. So you do that. There is certainly a sales process. Something happens in the exam room to go from a potential patient, and I'm sure that are you selling packages of treatments or anything like that, or is everything?
Yes and no. So we're selling like a program rather than a package.
Okay.
I think that, is there another question? I mean, I could talk about that, but
I'm not, but there's essentially, I'm signing up for a plan of care, and there's going to be a monetary exchange for that. So most of us, especially if we're in like you were in your first clinical, heavily physician referral setting where it almost, not that it doesn't matter what we do in the exam room, but there's always going to be more physician referrals. For those of us that are in the cash pay setting or we're marketing direct to the consumer, we have to be a little more competent in the exam room. It's a higher skill set to convert somebody that has either heard about us by word of mouth or any other direction other than a physician referral. How do you think about that? You probably had a lot of natural skill set when you first got started from your career as a massage therapist, but how do you think about that, and what are the elements that you're teaching there?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is if you have an in-network or like more traditional practice, just imagine if you were selling physical therapy the way that we're selling it in a high friction environment, like how successful you could be. It's like most people who are in network just take it for granted that patients are going to come. Right. Oh, I'm struggling. I'm like, sell the damn thing, So I think that I didn't start with a good sales skill set, and I wasn't very confident in my ability to deliver physical therapy as much as I was extremely confident in my ability to help people get out of pain and use my hands. And I think that the number one piece is, is it when patients call, no matter whether they've been referred by a physician or self-referred, it's kind of finding out what brought them in today and why is Google or why is their physician's recommendation important to them? Because whether they're going to sign up, like even if it was just a copay, I mean, if all we did was charge copays, like we'd have patients out our ears, but how could I make the most money? To me, the insurance is like the milk and bread in the grocery store. It's not where the profit margin is. The big profit margin is, the back end services, the wellness services. And if I position the back end services correctly at the first visit, as Mrs. Jones, like we're going to get you in for a physical therapy plan of care, whatever you want to call it. And when you're done, I'm quite confident that you'd be a great fit for our Pilates program or our group fitness program, et cetera. But however, we'll talk about that time when the time's right or towards the end of your plan of care. We'll talk about that program. But what I'm doing is I'm positioning more future with us than just like this knee surgery problem, right? I'm creating more future and I'm stretching the gap and I'm positioning my continued programs because if insurance reimbursement is going down and physical therapists want higher salaries, like the two don't match, but I can use that to bring more people into my business and sell them something on the back end that has a much higher profit margin. And that can be positioned up front. And that's where I feel like I think that's where the magic is. It's not in what I do during the therapy, as long as I build rapport and help people. And it's not what we do after, it's what we do in the beginning to position a journey with us of health and wellness and not just, fix something and passively fixing something that people don't want to take care of themselves.
That's great. Along those lines, I read a line somewhere in the prep for this episode that your mission was to help people avoid unnecessary surgeries. and that you're purpose driven. Can you talk about that mission a little bit, the vision that you have? Because I think we are uniquely positioned as physical therapists, as conservative care providers, to be helping people avoid that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think there was a time at which, like, I went to the Summit of Greatness with Lewis Howes, and I don't know if you know Lewis, but he's one of these guys who was a football player, and now he's just like builds online courses and inspires a ton of people. He's got a massive podcast, and I'm listening to all the other speakers like Brendan Burchard and Esther Perel and Eric Thomas, and they're like, my mission and purpose is, and it was this huge, massive thing. And I was thinking, I was like, well, what's my big purpose? And I've had plenty of experiences, as probably you've had, and everyone listening, with patients saying, well, I never should have gotten that surgery. Like, you've helped me so much. I shouldn't have gotten that surgery in the first place. Like, it's not for me to judge whether they should or shouldn't have. In many cases, they probably didn't need it, but they've already had it, right? I mean, even recently I went on a bike ride and this woman was like, well, go ahead of me. I'm just stay at the back because I'm having major back surgery on Friday. And this is like major back surgery within a week. And she smoked me on the bike ride. I'm like, I don't know what kind of major back surgery you're having, but I'm unfamiliar with that, with why, like, I didn't say that to her, but I'm like, people are being offered back surgery as, surgery is just like, well, we just put surgery on the table. Like, we know you've got bursitis, but we can always do surgery. And it's like, like the physicians and orthopedic surgeons, like, I feel that this is unethical and almost malpractice to recommend or even put surgery on the table and tell people they're the worst they've ever seen, because as a physical therapist, massage therapist, they cannot be the worst they've ever seen, because I keep hearing that from patients. And like, the worst I've ever seen is not help people. And I think instead of me going after physicians and surgeons, because they're not going to listen to me, because whatever, like, some physical therapist with a big ego won't listen to me either. Patients might. And where is the choice being made of who to go see to help their back? What's the patients are making the choice I need to go see the surgeon. So, I really want people to think, oh, I need a total body diagnostic when my back hurts. Like, I need to go see Dr. LeBauer. I need a total body diagnostic. But I realized I was sitting there at this conference and I said, you know what? If I can help 1 million people avoid unnecessary, expensive imaging and unnecessary surgery, that'll be great. And then I was like, well, I've been treating patients for 20 years and I've probably seen, 100, maybe 200 people a year. And I was like, that number becomes really small. And I said, okay, if a physical therapist only treats patients for 10 years, they see half as many people as I do, work half as hard as me. I need to help 55,000 physical therapists be successful in marketing directly to patients, so that together we can help 100 million people worldwide avoid expensive imaging and unnecessary surgery. And these are the surgeries that like make you want to bang your head against the wall. Like, we're just like, let's just go in there and scope it just to see what's wrong. Like, I had a patient who came to me after 2 ankle surgeries. He had sprained his ankle and had hurt for a few months. So they did a scope just to see what was wrong. And then 6 months later, a year later, he had a second surgery to clean out the scar tissue from the first surgery. And he'd come to me and he's like, well, I've been taking opioids and I can't get off of them because I travel multiple times a month for work. And when I go to China, they won't get pre-pandemic that they won't give me extra to take with me to last me. So I'll either be in withdrawal while I'm on a work trip, or they look at me like I'm a drug addict, and he can't get a prescription that's going to, it's like, but they didn't give him any other options. And it's just heartbreaking to me. And I've just seen too many people with these same stories tell me the same thing. I'm like, Aaron doesn't have influence over the providers who are recommending these crazy interventions, but I can influence other physical therapists and influence patients' decision through the marketing and sales strategies that we both know and talk about. So.
That's great. Yeah. I almost think we have I absolutely think we have a moral responsibility with our code of ethics of anybody that is in conservative professional healthcare to ultimately educate the patient. And I mean that, and when we talk about marketing, that's really what we're talking about is patient education. One of the most common questions that I get, Aaron, and I'm sure you get it a lot as well, is so I'm just starting out, I'm in private practice, I'm in cash pay, I'm in network, the setting doesn't really matter, but they'll say, people will ask, what's the number one thing? What's the most successful marketing strategy I should be doing right now? Or what's my first step? How do you answer that question typically and get people started thinking about marketing the right way?
Yeah, I think there's the short term and then the long term strategy. And I think the short term, like, how do I get patients in the door right away when I'm starting or promoting something new? And it's, you got to get in front of people. You got to get in front of people, and it's not just patients, but it's become a local expert and celebrity. It's the principle of like the Dream 100. It's like, who are the top 100 people in your area that have customers and clients who are your patients? But you can't do that unless you know who your patients are. You have a specific avatar, and you know who you help and what you help them do. I mean, who you help and what you help them do, then I can go find the other people who have those same people who aren't helping them do the exact same thing or aren't helping them in the exact same stage. Like, I might not come to see another physical therapist unless maybe I'm a pelvic floor therapist and you're orthopedic, and then you might be part of my Dream 100. But I'm going to go after yoga studio owners, fitness professionals. I'm going to go after health food store owners, etc. Like, they're all going to be. So I want to get in front of them and then run some. It's not just to run a workshop, but you teach workshops really well. It's how can I provide them value, and then they're like, hey, by the way, I teach a workshop on back pain. Do you think your clients or people would be interested in me coming and do that for you sometime? And they're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. We'd love you to do that. And then that's a great way to get those first people in the door. But then the long-term strategy for me is building the follow-up email marketing systems that we talked about earlier. And if we do that and combining the two, that's what makes it so that I don't actually have to do active marketing in my business to keep it where I want it. If I want to grow it quickly, I have to do some more active marketing, but I'm actually even teaching my staff how to do that so that they can do that part. And Aaron doesn't have to do that.
Are you okay if I ask you some questions about
Please.
The Cash PT blueprint?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So for the listeners that haven't read it before, let's talk about who the book is really for. Yeah. So, can you get into that?
Yeah,
who it's
I wrote
not for.
So it's a great question. So I have a book. It's called The Cash PT Blueprint, and it's companion to the course I created about. Was it how many years ago? 2013.
We launched we launched, I think, a few months apart. So the first courses, pretty close.
So I launched my first course back then, 2013, and originally it was for PTs who just wanted to start cash based, or for PT people were coming to me, Aaron, I've got an in-network business and I want to convert to cash. And so a few years later, I wrote the book, and it's a companion to it. So it goes over a lot of the same principles. It's got some different stories in it, but really it's for physical therapists who want to either launch a 6-figure cash practice, or physical therapy business owners who want to take their cash practice and scale it up. And even if you're in network, like I said, there's things in there that you can learn because of the sales and marketing strategies that we're doing that, marketing to physicians, I tried it and it didn't work for me because they were like, well, I'm not going to send patients to you because you don't take their insurance. And it was like, gate closed. I didn't even have to bring them birthday cakes or whatever. I was like, that's not going to work. And I wrote it because, I think coming from another healthcare profession, from massage therapy, there are a lot of things missing in my education as a PT in what was being taught about sales, about how do we treat patients, how do we build a very simple business, not an overly complicated business. That was one thing for me as others, like insurance is going to complicate my life because I'm going to have to hire a couple other people to help me file claims. And I was starting from scratch when everyone told me I couldn't do it. So really it's written for anyone who has an interest in helping more people, but also generating more income and revenue for yourself through cash-based services or through a fully 100% cash practice.
That's great. So and I like how you said it was set up as a companion to the course, which is great. let's just stick with the top three. What are the top three things when people are making the conversion over?
Mm-hmm.
And also appreciate what you said, because since that time now, $5,000 or $7,500 deductibles per year and HSA programs, they're all new, right? So even if we are in network, as many clinicians still are, we're still forced to have the same sales and marketing competencies.
Right.
Can you talk about in terms of the conversion, what are the top three barriers that get in the way to prevent practices from successfully adding on a cash pay service or transitioning over to a cash pay practice?
Yeah. Mindset.
Okay, great.
3.
So, and how do you teach that? Do you use like self-limiting beliefs or?
Yeah, I think there's 3 things. There's a couple of different ones. I'm trying to remember them. I know them, but there's give to get. You have to give in exchange for something in return. So I have to give value up front, give results in advance. Like, for example, if you already typed out that email I talked about earlier and you send it, like, hopefully I've given you some results. And then maybe or I'm sure Chad has done that too. I mean, coming to this podcast and listening, he's like, you're getting some knowledge or inspiration. You're gonna be like, yeah, I'm going to go work for Chad because Chad's helped me a ton. Like, results in advance. I do that for my patients too. But that's the most people come out of school with a take mindset. They just like, I'm going to go to physicians and ask for referrals. Like, you don't ask for referrals. We need to give them, like, we need to make their day easier. And Chad, I learned some of this from you. It's like, you go in and the way that you were doing the marketing is like, how do we make it easier for them to refer to us? Any of those things. It's like, okay, so we have to give without expectation. And we have to have this mindset of, I'm going to give so much value up front that there's no way you would choose another physical therapy practice, whether that's in one of our workshops, through their email marketing, through our Facebook page or Facebook groups, a clinic podcast, etc. So that's one. Then there's the mindset of, like I'm a doctor or I'm a primary care provider. Like, I'm a physical therapist who can evaluate you and help you make a decision. I'm not worried about conflicting, making a recommendation that conflicts with someone else. Because as soon as I'm worried that the physician might get mad at me for telling the patient, you know what, this really isn't bursitis. This is actually like a hip instability problem or an ankle issue. Like, I know they might say it's bursitis, but that's why the injection didn't work. We're going to do it this way. And then the physician calls and gets mad and they're like, how dare you tell my patient that they have something else? I'm never sending you any patients again. Okay, great. But if I go into this with a scarcity mindset that, so maybe the next thing is abundance, right? They tie together, that there's not enough patients and physician A or B won't send me patients, or Google or Facebook doesn't work and there's not enough patients, or the practice down the street just opened up. Like, my practice is like, I'm also not going to have it. So you have to have an abundance mindset. There's plenty of money in the world. There's plenty of patients who need us. I mean, 7% of people with back pain who see their primary care physician get referred to PT. Like, there's plenty of people who need us. So we have to go out and find our customers, find the money, find the people that need our help. And that's our job as business owners to do that. And so if one of the best ways I can serve you is to do like a laser technique, a needling technique, a massage technique, and insurance isn't going to cover it, well, I'm not going to say, oh, but I recommend this, but insurance won't cover it. Like, that's dismissing it and decreasing the value. It's Mrs. Jones. This is absolutely something that you need and would benefit you, so that you can get back to CrossFit and feel better, faster, stronger, and like a good role model for your kids. The good news is your insurance covers half of your treatment plan. Or, your treatment plan is, $3,000 and it includes PT and Pilates and all these extra things. And your insurance is going to cover, 10% of it. That's great. It's like the mind, that's the mindset. It's all about how we value ourselves, and that we are worth hundreds of dollars per hour, not just a copay. And that's where I think a lot of people struggle, Chad, is that coming from I think not many people went into business ownership right out of school, like knowing, hey, I'm going to do this. They got a job and they're like, that's not giving me what I want. I'm going to go start my own practice because I can do this better. Right. So, but we came from a place where we were worth a copay, and now an insurance is telling us you're not even worth a copay because, we're not even going to reimburse you part of, like anything because the copay is so high. And then we're like, okay, great. So now I want to charge a cash-based services, and I'm going to undervalue and undercharge myself and undersell myself. But what we have to do is we have to look at what the patients get out of this part of the journey. And if we can help them restore their life and, get their life back, like that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to them. It's just, you just don't pay to, there's no bank that when you go into the get surgery and say, hey, look, if you pay $100,000, I guarantee you won't get a hospital-borne infection. And if you pay $250, you won't die. Like that just doesn't happen in healthcare. But people would drop $1 million. I'd figure out, like, if I need this, I'd pay $1 million to make sure I came out alive on the other end. But people don't come out alive on the other end of surgeries. And so as you said, it's our ethical obligation. I believe it's our ethical obligation to learn how to sell physical therapy, because once we do that, then people will know, like, we're the best, at least the best first 10 stops before surgery, because not all PT is the same. And it all starts with the mind. That's all mindset driven. Then the rest is logistics around how do I just charge for something, and what do I call it, and how do I deliver it?
That's great. Love what you said there. Mindset. Quick summary. Number one was value, give value to get value. Two was a combination of don't disparage, but operating with the scarcity mindset. Why fight over the 7% versus having an abundance mindset and going after figuring out how to go after the 93%.
Yeah, absolutely. And valuing our expertise, because our ability to make decisions with our patients, not just for our patients, but with our patients, is highly undervalued by other people. And so we undervalue it ourselves. But if I can keep people, I know people who've been in through to orthopedic surgeries, and come out, not come out on the other end without feeling in the limb, with a blood clot, with a hospital-borne infection. And some people, and then the majority of people just come out and like nothing's different. And then some people, and then there's plenty of people it helps, but there are surgeries that are necessary, but there's surgeries that, we all know are like just for sport.
Yeah. Spinal fusion's the biggest one in our area.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you said there, you're the worst I've ever seen. I don't know how many times I've heard that, but the spinal fusion average price here in Central PA is $114,000. Wow. That's reimbursement. That's not charge. That's what, the cost of it. And then success rate is 30%. Rate of second surgery needed, like you talked about with the ankle scope. Second surgery needed within 5 years is 70%.
God.
So not if you would just look at that on paper, the specs of the surgery, nobody would ever sign up for that. Yeah. Dr. Aaron LeBauer, you are a gem. This was great. You covered a lot of ground, talked about email marketing. You shared some of your story too, which was unique. So I really appreciate that. Well, what's the best way for our listeners to learn more about you or follow up with you?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Chad, for asking. The best thing to do is go to Instagram, follow me at Aaron LeBauer. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have Instagram, you need to get Instagram. Like you want a successful business, you need to get it. Look, I don't like QR codes either, but that's the world these days. Like you can't get a menu without a QR code. I'm like, I'm too old for that shit. Go follow me on Instagram at Aaron LeBauer. Just put me into Google. If you refuse to get Instagram, just put my name into Google. You'll find me pretty easily. And
just to spell that out for everybody, it's AARON. LeBauer is LEBAUER. And also, if a listener wants to check out the Cash PT Blueprint book, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can go to cashptblueprintbook.com, and then you just cover shipping, and I'll send you out a free copy.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. This was great. Really appreciate you doing this, man.
Dude, Chad, thanks for having me. This was really awesome, and I appreciate you so much.
Remember to visit getbreakthrough.com to access our free resource library designed specifically for private practice growth. While you're there, make sure you register for a complimentary growth assessment to learn about potential opportunities for growth in your local market. Again, thank you for tuning into the Grow Your Practice podcast and supporting our mission to help people in pain get back to normal naturally.